Can we talk to you?
Joy 99.7 FM.
Why you they worry?
Worry.
What be your story?
Sorry.
You not give him. I say God go do one.
Do one.
Listen, why you they worry?
Worry.
What be your story?
Sorry.
Hey, you not get him.
Joy 99.7 FM.
Listen, you don't feel that vibe.
I don't feel that vibe.
You don't feel that vibe.
I don't feel that vibe. Oh.
Yes, shit. Hey, you don't feel that vibe.
I don't feel that vibe.
Hey, you don't feel that vibe.
I don't feel that vibe. Oh.
Let's go. Yeah.
Joy 99.7 FM.
Yes, shit.
Joy 99.7 FM.
Make you no stress about what you go wear. Baba God, he go sort you.
He goes out to you.
Even for the birds and the fish in the sea, Baba God, he they come through.
He they come
See,
to.
make you no stress, you go there alright.
Alright.
Don't give up, this day inside.
Inside.
Oh yeah, move to the dance floor, shake your body and do your best move. See, make you no stress about what you go wear. Baba God, he go sort you.
Sorted, right?
Even for the birds and the fish in the sea, Baba God, he they come through.
He definitely comes through.
You go there alright.
Alright.
Don't
Bim day inside.
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 Oh yeah, move to the dance floor.
And do your what?
Body and do your best move.
Your best move.
Ready? You don't feel that vibe.
I don't feel that vibe.
Joy 99.7
You don't feel
FM.
that vibe.
I don't feel that vibe.
Well, the vibe that's on right now is Ultimate Health on Joy 99.7 FM. My name is Nortey by nature. Listen every Sunday, 2:05, we come alive.
Joy 99.7 FM.
Fry there with Nanaya Ofreata. They call this one the vibe. You know I do my praise before we do the healthy stuff, right?
Joy 99.7 FM.
That's right, give them, tell them Ultimate Health is on. Facebook, YouTube, and X.
Go for mommy. Go for mommy. Go for mommy. Hey, one leg to the left side.
One leg to the... All right, Ultimate Health.
One leg to the right side. One leg to
Friday was World Malaria Day. 25th of April every year.
shoulder. Heavy shoulder. Heavy shoulder.
Theme is malaria ends with us, you and me.
Hey, one leg to the. One leg to the
I
right.
got in studio
One leg to the.
Dr. Louisa Demke
Go down low. Go down low.
Mate.
Down low. Hey, everybody.
Obviously, must be Odumasi somewhere. Huh?
Go down low. Yes, where?
Yeah, she's in the studio next to Dr. Paul Watting. I was expecting the, fairer version.
You dance.
UK, yeah.
Can we do another dance? Are you ready?
But Dr. Mate is the public health she's a public health physician specialist, and she's the Metropolitan Director of Health of the Health Service for the Greater Accra Metropolis. Dr. Boating is the focal person for the health service for malaria elimination, case management. Yeah. Docs, you're welcome to the studio.
Thank you.
Thank you, and we're happy to be here.
Yeah. You were not feeling the vibe, but I know.
Oh, we didn't feel that. We didn't feel the
didn't feel the
vibe. Yes.
Oh, I should have come to the dance floor. Ziggy, when we're closing, I'll vibe them small and see. But it's great to have you. I got you into the studio on very, very, very short notice, so I'm immensely grateful that you're here. I had actually scheduled to do something on the bill for organ and tissue donation, a very important bill we're pushing through, and we had to make a shift. So I decided, well, Friday, World Malaria Day, let me get in there. Okay, so you're welcome.
It's a happy shift.
It's very happy and relevant.
Yes,
right.
yes.
Good to have you.
Yeah,
and malaria ends with us. Over the years, I've followed the theme and all the program managers and all the stuff. But Ghanaians tend to relegate malaria into the background because we hear it so often, right? We don't take it that serious. But, the program and the strategy for 2024 to 2028 is actually talking about eliminating malaria.
Yes.
You know, I want to look at you guys and say, are you serious? But
We are
folks,
very serious.
folks, as you listen to us, in 2021, China was declared zero malaria free in 2021 after meeting the criteria for 3 years clear with no case of malaria. Check their population out. In Egypt is also declared free. I think Algeria, Morocco, or Mauritius.
Yeah, Mauritius.
And then you have the
Cape
Cape Verde, right? The big giants. You have Congo, Nigeria. Oof, the numbers there are mind-boggling. But again, this is the context. So let me start with you, Dr. Boateng. I mean, is it possible? I know we've made gains. I'll get into those in a sec. But is it possible to totally eliminate? We're used to hearing we are a malaria endemic country.
Yes.
Right? People are traveling here. They are told, Charlie, that's the zone. Yes. So this target, break it down for my listeners.
Well, the first part of your question, is it possible? And
I've shown it's possible elsewhere, but you know when we come here,
So I'll answer your question this way, using statistics.
Right.
In the early 2000s, the prevalence of malaria was around 75%.
That's right.
What it meant was that if you randomly sampled 100 people across the country, 75 of them will have parasites within their blood.
Okay.
Now, fast forward over the years, our last survey was in 2022, the Ghana Demographic and Health Survey.
Yeah.
The national prevalence was 8.6%.
8.6. That's right. It goes a bit higher when you move upwards.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Around 12 in some of the rural areas.
Yes, yes.
Yeah?
So OT region has the highest as of 2022.
Okay.
That was 15%. And then the Greater Accra region had the lowest. That was 2%.
Okay. I was disappointed with myself when I did my reading and I was getting 2022. I was trying to dig up more current, that's about 3 years ago.
Yeah, because it's a population survey. So you do it almost every 4 to 5 years.
Okay.
Yes, so that's why.
Okay. Do we have institutional data which is maybe moving us more current? I know it's...
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, every year, we have current data.
Okay.
But with those kinds of data, we like to use the surveys because they're a bit more reliable.
Great.
The service data has its own limitations and all that. So we interpret it in the light of its limitations.
Okay. So we've made phenomenal progress.
So when we use the population data, it means that it is very credible data that we are presenting.
Okay.
So we've made significant progress, as you've said. And so that gives us the hope that within a little short time and with a little more sustained increased efforts, we should be able to eliminate like other countries have been able to.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay,
yes.
Folks, if you've just joined us, it's about 10 minutes past the hour of 2. Join 99.7 FM. Program is Ultimate Health, your ultimate guide to healthy living with me, Nortey by nature. You just heard speaking Dr. Paul Boateng. He's with the Health Service. And when it comes to case management for malaria, he's the focal person. So I've got the right person in the studio. Next to him, I have the Metro Director for Health, Dr. Ademki Mate. Madam.
Yes, Doc.
Did I get the Odumasu Krobo right?
Yes, you didn't try to say things like mate.
Oh no,
mante,
matey, mate.
Yes.
No. Because I have an uncle Azu. He's Mate Azu.
Exactly.
Yes. I don't like doing the and the any too much. Yeah.
I guess that's why you have the accent for it.
Oh, I see. Mate.
Mate.
All right. So you sit on top of Greater Accra, right? And again, folks, numbers matter. Okay. So when we say we're beating down the numbers, we are talking about regular malaria, right? Or you guys would say uncomplicated malaria.
Uncomplicated, yes.
Right? Okay. I know the headaches.
Regular malaria.
Regular,
everyday malaria.
Everyday malaria.
Yeah,
but this is something that we every time. I've done this program since 2003. Okay. And still, people need to pin it down. They say fever, right? Lock it down for us. When we say malaria, what are we talking about?
Right. So, fever, because malaria is one of the conditions very common.
Okay.
And fever is one of the very common symptoms for a lot of common conditions.
Good.
So that makes it a difficulty, because once people say malaria is equal to fever, then you get everybody assigning malaria already
Okay.
to anything that they have looking like a fever.
Okay.
And that in itself is one of the concerns for the malaria elimination program and for all of us who work in public health and in the district, because we want to try and stop that.
Okay.
Fever or feeling feverish or having some bitter taste, because I know that sometimes it's a myriad of things. They are feeling hot or warm, the body temperature has gone up, there's this feeling of sickness or unwell, and then there's this bitter taste in the mouth.
Okay.
Then people say, I have a fever. And once that comes in, then it's equal to malaria.
Okay.
And then we have issues, because people would diagnose themselves, they'll walk into a pharmacy,
Do all the things they
And
should not
say-
be doing unless it is malaria.
give me malaria medicines,
Okay.
because I know how I feel. This is my fever.
Okay.
Once my fever comes, it is malaria and nothing else. And it's difficult. It's a challenge for us, because we want to get to the point where we say it's malaria, it's actually malaria.
Okay. So what actually is I want my listeners listening to us right now who make the mistake we've just talked about or described, right? Bitterness in the mouth, I have temperature, I feel a bit cold and stuff like that. And I want them to give themselves a knock on the head, right? So give us the real deal. So when we say malaria, what are we talking about?
So malaria is an infection, first of all,
Okay.
from a protozoan.
Okay.
We have different kinds of organisms that can cause infections. So you have
Right.
bacteria, you have viruses, you have fungi.
Okay.
But malaria is a protozoan infection.
Okay.
So once it's an infection, it means that something outside the body's acceptance has gotten into the bloodstream.
Okay.
And the body reacts to that foreign organism
Okay.
or agent that
Right.
has entered the body.
Okay.
So as a fever, the fever is one of the body's ways of just responding to something
Okay.
off that has entered into the body.
Okay.
So, like I said, it's a fever is not equal to malaria, because the body reacts to an organism that has gotten into the body, and it can react to any other organism that way.
Okay.
So if it's a fungus that's gotten into the body, if it's a bacteria, if it's a virus, the body can and would react to it in a certain way,
Right.
which would or may include the fever.
Right.
So malaria being one of the infections, yes, it can come with the fever, it can come with the headache, vomiting, abdominal pains, chills, and like I said, these are not equal to malaria.
A
because
range
they're
of symptoms.
A range of symptoms.
Okay.
So yes, I mean, in Ghana, because it's one of the commonest, and we say it's endemic, once people have these symptoms, the first thing that comes to mind is common things are common.
Right.
So why don't I say it is malaria?
Okay.
But it may not necessarily be malaria, because you can have typhoid fever and it will come up that way.
Okay.
You could even have upper respiratory tract infections and you have a fever because an organism has entered into the body.
Okay.
So yes, it's an array of symptoms
Right.
that you may feel.
And we need to pin it down.
Yes.
Right? Because if we don't pin it down, then we'll be doing some broad management.
Exactly.
We-
And I think it's
Yeah.
in the pinning down that we say, if you have symptoms as such, visit the nearest facility.
Okay.
Visit the nearest facility, because we want to be able to test first
Right.
and be sure that it's indeed a malaria parasite in your blood.
Okay.
And then give you the appropriate medications to deal with it.
Okay, folks, if you just joined us, 16 minutes past the hour of 2 on Joy 99.7 FM, we're zeroing down on what malaria is, surprisingly, in 2025. We need to do that, okay?
Yes.
Because many of you will skip the rapid diagnostic test and all those things because you think you know malaria. Guess what? I've got the people who know malaria in the studio. All right. So we need to catch this properly. Sometimes you think you're saving money. Sometimes you think you know what to do because it is X or Y. And because, as I hinted earlier, there's also complicated malaria. So we
Yes.
need to know what we're doing. Indeed, just like we have maternal mortality, we have malaria mortality. People
Yeah.
do die from malaria.
Yeah.
So we need to catch it and know we're doing the right thing and know it is working.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's why I'm being all this, blah, 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 talking plenty about it. If you don't pin it down, and it's sad, especially when we come to under 5 mortality.
Exactly.
People have lost children
Yeah.
due to malaria.
Yeah.
Okay, so you just heard Dr. Mate sharing with us that yes, the body has a certain pattern of response to alien bodies entering, or infections or disease causing pathogens entering the body, which could include all the things you know and call and name fever or malaria. But when it comes to managing it, it must be properly identified, and then we can go into the management.
Fantastic.
Am I right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. So when it comes to this, yes, go ahead.
Just to add to that,
Yeah.
so just to summarize what Doc said,
Mm,
you can only say you have malaria
okay.
when, first of all, yes, you have signs and symptoms that are suggestive of malaria.
Okay.
And your test result, either malaria rapid diagnosis test, like
Okay.
RDT, or microscopy,
Right.
is positive.
Okay.
So without a positive test, you
Mhm.
cannot say you have malaria.
All right.
And the reason is because malaria manifests, the symptoms of malaria are just like any other sickness.
Right.
There's no constitution of symptoms that you can put together and say for sure that this is malaria.
Okay.
No. So we need to make sure that the test result is positive.
We need a pink sheet.
Yes.
Okay.
The evidence is in the test.
Right.
Yes, because there are so many situations where people assume that, okay, this is malaria, they start treatment, and then they realize that it's something else.
Okay.
I've had situations where the beginning of a chicken pox, the person has high temperature, and the person thinks, okay, this is malaria, starts treatment, and then the rashes start coming out, and then we are like, okay, it's chicken pox. Why did I start the malaria treatment in the
Okay.
first place?
Right.
And there are situations where in COVID-19, so many people started
Yep.
anti-malaria, then realized, it was COVID-19.
Right.
Okay, and other situations. So the
Okay.
key thing is that you can't differentiate malaria from other causes of fever
Okay.
unless you do the test.
Okay.
And the truth of the matter is that in this part of the world, a lot of the micro the how do you call it the microorganisms, the germs that cause fever are more viral, okay, than the other types like the parasites and then the bacteria.
Okay.
And most of the viral illnesses are self-limiting. You probably
Okay.
will not need to do anything. Probably just rest, taking some analgesics, taking a lot of fluids, and with time, your body would be able to deal with it in the first place.
Okay.
So we encourage people that never ever treat any fever as malaria unless your test result is positive.
Okay. Great
And the
stuff.
other reason we say that also is because, previously, we used to treat presumptively all fevers were presumed to be malaria,
Exactly.
and we were treating with chloroquine. And then now the parasite became resistant to chloroquine.
Yep.
And then we moved on to SP, that's Fancida. And the parasite developed resistance. Now we are using it with ACTs. And in some parts of the world, there are some indications to show that the parasite has started developing resistance to the ACT. So
Yep.
we need to be very, very careful with this.
Okay.
Only make sure that you take antimalarials when the test result is
Right,
positive.
you're just
Yeah.
hearing Dr. Paul Boateng. He's with the Ghana Health Service, and he sits on top of case management when it comes to malaria. Right, and he's just reminding me of a major fight I went and started in 2005 on this very same show when we were switching from chloroquine to artesunate amodiaquine. My brother Alex Dodu, because anyway, I won't go there. Right, it was a major storm because we switched to the combination therapy, and there was a bit of people had adverse reactions and so on and so forth. There was a Reverend Mate at FDB. Eesh, we fought. Right? They thought I was being a bit too tough, but then I had big generals in pharmacy and all that behind me, but we got to understand that all those things with the weight and this and that, and then we had local formulations as well, so that was 2005. So we've made that switch. We understand the combination therapy. We understood also why and how we became resistant to chloroquine, right? Because we were messing around doing anything for everything, and therefore the parasite got wise, right? So let's talk a bit about this, drug-resistant malaria. right? Are we past it? Because you're suggesting that even with the combination therapy, there's some evidence that we could be having some of those issues. Oh,
Yes, not in Ghana.
okay.
So in Ghana, almost every year we test the efficacy of our anti-malaria.
Okay.
And they are all efficacious, almost 98, 99%. So we are very secured
Okay.
that all our ACTs are efficacious.
Right.
But just like the chloroquine, when it started in other parts of the world, we started hearing of it, and then it spread, and it came to Ghana. So when you start getting those signals, you need to be ready.
You need to.
Yes.
All right.
So I know in some parts of East Africa, I mean, there's what called partial resistance to
Okay.
artemisinin.
All right.
So now there's delayed clearance of the parasite, and so those are signals.
Okay.
And then also in some parts of Southeast Asia, I mean, there's resistance to the piperacin. They use DHAP, so there's resistance to piperacin. So
Right.
when you start hearing these things, it means that you have to be proactive
Okay.
and make sure that you prevent resistance from coming in the first. Because
Okay.
we don't have any new molecule coming up in the next few years.
All right.
So we need to safeguard the molecules that we have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. If you just joined us, 23 minutes past the hour, we're moving under the theme of the World Malaria Day. Malaria ends with us. There's a very strong, potent, ambitious target goal that when are we supposed to?
ambitious.
Yeah, yes, it is ambitious because
Yeah, it's very ambitious.
we're now going to get on the ground. We've talked that what is malaria and all that, but
Yeah.
we'll,
Yeah.
and we'll know what we have to do, and we know the challenge is just
Yeah.
driving here from Latabi Okoshi. I mean, come on, see the mound of rubbish on the borders of the Mortuary Road. It's as if Sodom and Gomorrah has crossed to Latabi Okoshi, and I'm hearing talk about what landfill. That's not a landfill. That's rubbish, and it's piling up. Okay, and when we start looking at what we need to do to eliminate malaria, these are some of the issues we need to be talking about. Okay, so we've got the medications, we've got the interventions. What have been our key pillars of intervention? I know my listeners know long-lasting insecticide-treated nets. We've done many things. What have been the pillars of our intervention, and what are those things that give us the confidence to say that we can actually achieve this target?
Right. I'll take that. So at the district level, let me bring it down,
Okay.
because we feed the national and everything.
Okay.
So the policy implementation actually happens at district level.
Okay.
So when it comes to managing and dealing with malaria, we look at both curative and preventive.
Right.
And preventive things are looking at how do we protect people so that they know about malaria, what causes it,
Okay.
and how to prevent it. So, and then the curative one looks at when somebody has malaria, what do we do?
Exactly.
So the array of things, I distribute them into preventive and curative. With
Yeah.
the preventive aspect, we are looking at, let me start from the things that cross cuts around us. So we look at advocacy, for instance, what you're doing today, and also marking World Malaria Day even in itself is a form of advocacy, social behavioral change movements, educating and sensitizing our communities about malaria and letting people know. I like the theme saying that malaria ends with us.
Yeah.
It's people should understand that you can't take yourself out of this malaria elimination
You have a role to-
agenda.
and a
You
part
have
to
a role
play.
to play as an individual.
Okay.
In the community, you have a role to play as a parent, as a teacher, as a religious leader. Everybody in the community has a role to play, and that's so we do a lot of advocacy and social behavioral change matters, even research and surveillance. So when we talk a little further, you would see that we do a lot of research and surveillance, and even monitoring and evaluating. We have a lot of indicators that we are looking at.
Right.
How many women and pregnant women are coming
right.
down with malaria? How many children under 5 are
5?
dying? Because these are the indicators that tell us whether we are meeting our goals
Okay.
or not, and telling us what actions we need to take to improve these indicators. And then we look at even supply chain procurement, because if you're talking about ACTs, medications for malaria, somebody needs to procure them. The procurement must be done on time. Movement to the districts and even into facilities, so we don't have shortages. imagine people coming into the facility, the pregnant woman is there due for intermittent preventive therapy, and the medications are not there.
Okay.
And then other things that you mentioned, the long-lasting insecticide nets. I mean, for the past 3 weeks, we've been talking about point mass distribution of mosquito.
We're distributing again.
Yes, I don't know. They didn't
Yep.
come to your house. Nobody came to your house.
They
to
don't know me.
Oh.
You know what I do? I sleep naked, you see, and the mosquito sees me and say, "Wait, there, trap," and that's it. I'm done. But we have distributed nets. We've done a lot of education on that. Some time back, we got some subsidized medications for malaria, which had the telltale packaging, the green labels. Was it Global Fund, or where was it from?
Yeah, Global Fund.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's
yes,
it.
yes,
Right.
yes,
Okay.
yeah.
We've done all those things. Okay. So we've got medication. We've got the nets. Right. We now started also. We started quite some time back, insisting on the testing, the
Yes.
rapid
Yes.
diagnostic testing,
Yes.
and all that. That gives some power to the client or the patient.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
To get that
Yeah.
done as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What else are we doing?
So I was talking about the long-lasting insecticide
Yeah.
net distribution, and then which we've done quite extensively. And then there are other interventions for the vector control, as in making sure the mosquito doesn't get near you. Apart from the nets, we also do the indoor residual spraying in some regions
Right.
and districts up north.
Okay.
And then we also have what we call the very famous intermittent preventive therapy in pregnancy.
For pregnant women,
yes,
yeah.
where every pregnant woman, after she feels the baby moving, takes malaria medications every month until so that we don't want the pregnant woman to get malaria.
Okay.
And all that. And of course, Dr. Boaten's big area, which is the case management,
Yeah.
the diagnosis, and
Okay.
treatment.
I'll switch to him in a sec. Let me
Yes.
just read out a couple of messages. Please, I have not treated malaria since 2018, even though I get mosquito bites often. Anytime I test, it's negative. Is it possible not to catch malaria? I knew this was coming. A friend of mine tells me, based on her blood group, she's cool. She's cool, cry. Is it possible not to catch malaria for such a long period in Ghana? Right? Is it advisable to do blind treatment? This is Prof from Tema, right? He doesn't get it, now he's worried. When he was getting it, he was like, okay, but he hasn't had it in a while, and he's asking, let's hang on to that. Let me read a couple more. This is from Dede in Maryland. Dede, Charlie. Why can't Tankansi? Oh, you've been out there for a long time. Leave Tankansi to us. Give us slangs. But why can't Tankansi be proactive by spraying neighborhoods to reduce the mosquito population? This is a point blank question, right? And you are the guys who can answer that. Tankansi. All right. This one looks like audio message. Really? Okay. Can't do videos. All right. So yes, the person who hasn't had it for a long time, or are there people who don't typically get malaria even though they are living in Ghana, which is endemic?
So that goes to attest to the fact that the burden of malaria is really, really come down over the years. So don't be surprised if you don't get
99.7
malaria,
FM.
even if you had some mosquito bites.
Okay.
Not all mosquito bites are infective.
Okay.
So you only get the parasites if the mosquito is carrying the parasite.
Carrying the
So
parasite.
if the mosquito is not carrying the parasite, then of course it won't transmit or transfer the parasite to
Okay.
you. So I think it's an indication that our burden is really, really going down.
Okay.
Okay, so that is it.
That's one side.
Let me just put it that way.
Okay.
And so never ever treat malaria if your test result is negative.
Okay.
And it's possible. In fact, you see, I'm even surprised that he or she is surprised that he's not had malaria for such a long time. In fact, in some parts of the world where they have eliminated malaria, the thinking is rather opposite.
You are rather the
Yes, because if they get a case of malaria, it's like
it's major
it's a major news.
tropical
You are,
disease.
yes, you are quarantined. Okay,
Yeah.
your contacts are traced, just like the beginning of COVID-19.
yeah.
That is where we have to get our mindset to,
Mm-hmm.
that it is possible to eliminate this disease.
Okay.
It is not normal to have malaria once a year or twice a year or once in no.
Okay.
We need to move from this whole control
Shift your
phase
mind.
to elimination. That it is,
Okay.
it is possible.
All right.
It is possible.
Okay.
And I don't know.
And
if,
they said
Oh,
tank
the
and say
tank and-
Yeah.
yes.
Yes.
Maybe,
As a
yeah,
matter of fact,
okay.
this I know she's talking about those days when the environmental. She's referring to the environmental health. Now we actually do what she's describing
Dede
about,
ake ogbo.
about the spraying, right?
Yeah.
She's talking about why town council won't spray. As a matter of fact, the National Malaria Elimination Program has one of the interventions called the larval source management,
Right.
which is directed at exactly how she's putting it. So it's an intervention that we put out monthly, and we spray. We actually use chemicals to spray. So we map out puddles, you know,
Okay.
where the mosquito will lay its
Well, we're
eggs
likely
and
to get stagnant.
exactly,
Yeah.
and bring
Water.
out the larvae. If you look at
Okay.
the stages, it's the larvae side, larvae stage that we target.
Okay.
And we do this as part of the interventions. As a matter of fact, Greater Accra is one of the regions that uses that intervention.
All right.
So it's health workers with Zoom Lion actually,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
Conjunction
That
with Zoom Lion,
does that, and so we train the sprayers. They go into the community.
So you're saying with confidence that takes place?
Yes, it takes place. So we map. Sometimes if you observe,
Maybe the
on your
mosquitoes know
street,
you are coming.
if you observe around your neighborhood,
Uh-huh.
sometimes you see that there are some white markings of puddles in areas because they mark them.
All right.
So they look for the puddles, they mark them, they actually scoop the water in the puddles to see if the larvae are in there, and they
Right.
go back and spray them. And these, they can even go to your houses, people's houses, and spray containers of water because the
Charlie, some
chemical-
places you are going to mark the whole area.
So just to add to that, in as much as we have Zoom Lions supporting the government to undertake this exercise, we also always push that we need to take ownership as individuals and as households and as workplaces. You need to take ownership of these interventions. You don't have to wait for Zoom Lion or another organization to come and even do this for you. Make sure that around where you work, around where you live, wherever you are, there are no stagnant collections of water. Make sure you clear all of those things. That will prevent you from
Then I won't
getting
go to
malaria. Sorry?
Then I won't go to work. You know, I understand citizens' participation.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And the kind of behavioral changes we're
Yes.
looking for. I'm
Yes.
going to shift to that in a second.
Yes.
But what we're saying is the system, right?
Yes.
Which we pay taxes to,
Yes.
mobilizes resources
Yes.
to support and undertake these interventions,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Such that in any given area, the countries we go to where they don't have mosquitoes,
Yeah.
and they're very particular. If
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
import bananas from somewhere, and there
Yeah.
are 3 mosquitoes,
Yeah.
right? You know, when I teach alongside public health, and they do port health,
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
kind of things they check in the ship,
Yeah. Yeah.
or you know, it's
Yeah.
serious.
Yeah.
All right. So we're just getting that assurance that these things are being done.
They are
Yeah.
being done.
Because
Yeah.
I will open the phone lines,
They are
okay?
being done.
Because we do the pink sheet straight.
Yeah.
We check. All right. So we're
Yeah.
supposed to be checking these things, but we have awful conditions, especially in the urban areas and some of the rural areas as well.
Yeah.
All right. When I look at the prevalence numbers,
Yeah.
right? When you start to move, right? I looked at the map, and I when you're going upwards, northwards, right? The numbers change significantly. Is it not again environmental situational?
Yes, that has a role to play. And but I think that the burden in terms of the cases and the deaths even in the northern parts of Ghana have reduced.
No.
drastically
That
as
is
well.
not in dispute.
Yes.
We've come a long
Yes.
way.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
The
Yes.
same
Yes.
way
Yes.
years back when I was doing HIV,
Yes.
this was
Yes.
prevalence
Yes.
in
Yes.
Ivory Coast.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. Yes.
But I'm just looking at the interventions because I know I don't want to go there with you people.
Okay.
But I know when it comes to allocation and resources and budgeting, there's
Yeah.
many challenges.
Yeah.
Right? But we are saying malaria ends with us.
Yeah.
So as somebody who's invited you, I have to also bring in these issues. Somebody's going to call as soon as I activate 030-221-6541. Malaria buttons for today. 030-221-6541. Right? The guys say you have a part to play in ending malaria. All right, they're in the studio, Dr. Paul Boateng and Dr. Louisa Mate, right? They can take your questions. But so, is this happening in your community? Just last Tuesday, a friend of mine was detained at a health facility. I will not mention their name, though typically I will.
Okay.
I would, right?
Okay.
But he says he's not staying. You know, we thought he should stay the night just to be sure.
Yeah.
A few things have changed. He said the mosquitoes in the ward. Charlie, stop. Right? The mosquitoes in the ward. Right? And I'm serious.
yeah,
Okay, if anybody if Ziggy annoys me, I'll mention the name of the hospital. Right? But this is what I'm talking about. You want to detain me in the hospital. And he's saying, hell no, didn't, wouldn't, couldn't. Because there are mosquitoes there. So we need to look at some of these things. All right? We want people to change behavior. Is there a part of it? I know our bylaws.
Yeah.
Where you are kicking hard on bylaws.
Yeah.
All right. Somebody, I bought Kelewele at Laboni Junction yesterday, and there's a little community along or parallel to the ring road, right, where they sell the cars and all that, right?
Yeah.
But you have little shops,
Yeah.
and there was a hairdressing salon, and this girl comes out of there, bucket of water on the road, and I'm like, okay, so are we also kicking hard on bylaws and sanctions, fines for people who are not helping us with the environmental aspect of ending malaria?
So I think it's the advocacy we continue to have, and this raises an important issue that, you know, eliminating malaria is not just a health sector issue.
No.
All sectors are involved, and all sectors have to play their role for us to be able to eliminate malaria. So we continue to. So in this elimination strategic plan that we drew, all sectors were on board: sanitation, environment, science, technology, education. So all these key stakeholders were part of the development of this strategic plan. And we are hoping that by playing their roles, respective roles, and making sure that people keep the environment clean, it will help us achieve malaria elimination.
Okay.
Just to also add that there are some of the interventions that we have to add as well.
Yeah.
One, the initial question was about the northern parts of the country where the case burden is high.
Yeah.
I mean, there are other socioeconomic aspects to malaria, factors that influence malaria transmission, and those could be the things involved in those parts of the country. So one, housing is important. The quality of your housing. Okay. If you have houses that have open eaves, there's no netting. Of course, mosquitoes will enter, and then the transmission will be higher.
So essentially, we'll get to poverty.
Yes, poverty. Yeah. So we realize that malaria cases are higher in rural areas compared to urban areas. So those are contributory factors. Level of education, all of that. Yeah. Those also are. So we are trying to make sure that we overcome some of these things. And then some of the other interventions that we failed to mention: seasonal malaria chemo prevention is done in the northern parts of the country where malaria transmission is highly seasonal. Very high during the rainy season. So children under 5, just before the rainy season starts, we give them anti-malarials monthly till the rainy season. About 5 months, the rainy season ends. And we've been found to protect them.
Slow down.
I'm looking at my time, that's why.
Don't worry, I've got the clock. If I have to bring you next week, I'll
that would be great. Okay. Then let me move slowly then.
We are still at the polling station.
Great.
Before the rainy season,
yes,
right?
Just
Children under 5, you said we give them.
Yes.
Right. Say that one again.
So,
is it that you're giving it out free? Is it that they're supposed to go to a particular facility or site? How is this rolled out?
So it's done house to house.
House to house.
Yes, we have volunteers that move from house to house. They register these children who are less than 5 years from house to house.
Okay.
And then they dose them with SP amodiaquine, anti-malaria. So it's given once a month. For about 5 months in the rainy season, and it's been found to really have brought the burden of malaria in that age group. Routine every year. For almost 10 years now.
Not just Accra or you go.
No, Accra does not qualify because it doesn't meet the criteria.
Okay.
Because
so out there in the rural areas.
Yes, where the burden is highly seasonal.
Okay.
So over 60% of cases are recorded within a very short period of time.
Good.
These are the areas that qualify for this intervention, seasonal malaria, chemo prevention.
All right, 030-221-6541. If you have questions, concerns, confessions, rants, raves, those are the buttons. 030-221-6541. Ultimate Health on Joy 99.7 FM with me, Nortey by nature. I'm talking to the health officials. We're looking to end malaria collectively, all of us, right? The theme for this year is malaria ends with us. Okay, I've given you information. Google. Malaria doesn't exist in China, Egypt, and other places. So it does happen. It is possible. We're looking at the strategies and, of course, your role. Okay, we've talked about diagnosis, making sure you are actually treating malaria if and when you have it, not just because you feel it is malaria, right? So case management has changed, and that has critically brought down the numbers. We are intervening when women are pregnant. We're looking at under fives and so on and so forth. And then we have some behavioral things that we have to change, all right? Ziggy tells me I have a caller on the line. Hello, good afternoon. Hello? Hello? I can hardly hear you, and I can't do sign language. Is that Oti?
Hello, good afternoon. Okay.
Good afternoon. Who am I speaking to?
This is Michael.
Michael, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from North Kanishi.
North Kanishi. Any mosquito near you?
I've driven them away.
You've driven them away. All right. Please share your question.
Yeah, my question has to do with the test that has to prove positively before you start taking any medication. My problem is I've had the test done before where the test came out negative.
Okay.
3 days later, 4 days later, I'm down with malaria. Now the test says it's positive. So trying to avoid that so that I don't get kicked down completely before I start taking it where the malaria is in full swing. As soon as I start having the fever that you spoke about earlier, that you're advising we shouldn't presume that to be malaria.
Right.
If I take the medication, then, 3-4 days I'm back at work. But if you wait because of the result saying it's negative, knowing very well that your symptoms are pretty clear,
okay,
and then you wait for it to be positive, then you are down, you can't go to work, and
All right.
you are now treating malaria.
Okay. Right. Empirical stuff from my phone line. He says he did a test, right? He did a test and it was negative. Okay? And then he got worse, right? He withheld treatment because they say if you are positive, only if you are positive, treat malaria, right? Then as he got worse, he went and it is positive, right? So he's wondering which is which. Okay, are there false negatives? Right? Are these tests reliable and therefore valid to guide our behavior and the management and treatment of the malaria?
I think one of the biggest policies for malaria control that we are pushing now in Ghana is the 3T policy.
All right.
Which we call the test, treat, and track. And that's where our matter on don't treat if you haven't tested.
Doc, if you can just hold, let me just squeeze in this other
Sure.
caller. Hello, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon.
Right, who am I speaking to?
I'm Nana.
Nana, where are you calling from?
So I'm calling from Hachu.
Hacho. Okay, go ahead, Nana, quickly.
So, I don't encourage self-medication here. However, I want to ask, how are they collaborating with our schools to make sure that right from the beginning, we raise children who go through to thinking that littering around is normal, like we have right now.
Okay, right.
You see, because I'm actually right, I'm a little campus right now, and I'm watching students, university students, just drink pure water and just dropping it on the floor.
You've made my
So,
day.
I'm just wondering, you just Medina, and it's worse. So, what plans do they have?
Okay.
Because it looks like we, the adults, it's lost already. Maybe the children now,
Okay.
50 years to come, then maybe some changes. So, what plans do they have?
Okay, great stuff. Right. So my caller there is saying that, look, he's I think there's some sports going on, soccer at Legon, right? They CAF something, school something, and he's just seeing, he says university students, the amount of littering that is going on. I just drove past the Bukom Sports Arena. There's something going on there now. It is crazy. The amount of plastics on the road and around that whole place. And this is not something that is just today. Anytime they have a function, it is crazy. He's asking, how are you liaising with schools to get this behavioral change integrated, internalized very early, right? So that our sanitation and other things, problems change. I have another caller. Let me quickly take that and come back to you. Hello?
Yeah, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon.
Yes, I want to make a contribution.
All right, your name first.
My name is Claude. I'm calling from Tema.
Okay, Claude, go ahead.
Concerning the malaria testing, does the time of day affect the results? Because sometimes, the parasite movement in bloodstream and things could be either nocturnal or during the day. So maybe certain times when the tests are done, you might not find parasites so much in the peripheral blood. Is that also a possibility? Thank you very much.
You see, your brofo has given you away with peripheral blood pad. Yeah. But good question. He's asking, he says, hey, look, maybe the load of the parasite load in your blood when the sample is taken may vary. Is there a test procedure? Is there an optimal time you should take the malaria test for it to be more accurate?
Right. Let me take the question on the environment.
Okay.
And then I'll push the
How are you integrating liaising with the
case
schools?
management ones to Dr. Boateng. So yes, as I work at the district level, I keep saying we have a local assembly that the health directorate is a department of. And as Dr. Boateng said, malaria is bigger than one department. It's not only a health problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's multi-sector.
Exactly.
So in fighting malaria, we at the health department collaborate with environmental health and sanitation, waste management. And in recent, we have a committee called the Risk Communication and Community Engagement Committee that looks at what are risks. And interestingly, these things that were mentioned by him came up. We have a lot of littering in schools, littering in the environment. How do we make these things better? We found the issues. We don't have bins in schools. So if we don't have bins in the schools...
We don't want to have bins in schools.
We don't now.
We don't want to have bins. You see, in countries where they have bins, there's a deliberate effort, right?
Yes.
Not just having the bins, collecting, right?
Fantastic, yes.
And all that.
So
you remember
now,
when we had the Mortine bins?
Yeah.
Yeah, on the roadsides and all that.
Exactly.
They fill up and nothing happens.
So now, since we observe that we don't have bins, as a committee and as a multi-sector committee working with health, environment, waste management, we are moving at getting bins in the schools. First of all, get the bins in the schools, teach and educate our young ones in the schools to segregate their waste from source. Don't mix the organic waste with the plastic waste, because now plastic is all over the place. People are buying it and changing it into fantastic things that the young ones are even interested in holding, like bags and things like that. So we are moving to that point where we are...
Can I suggest a sanitation competition for the school straight off?
Fantastic. It's something I could pick up
because
easily.
I once went to a school to see a counselor, and just outside the counselor's office door, the rubbish there. And I asked her, Madam, Bibi Awoko, you see, we have National Science and Maths quiz. We want to end malaria. Why are we not getting the schools to compete against themselves for cleanest school in the country?
Fantastic idea.
Why are we sitting there?
Pick it up.
No,
yes.
I'm selling the idea. Hang on.
Yeah.
Why? You see, the countries that have bins have a clear plan to sustain not only the positioning, the collection, and everything, right? That is why people cite Lee Kuan Yew and Singapore. You can't drop chewing gum. You can't do that because there's a policy. But everybody seems to tell us why it can't be done. That's why I started with, are you sure we can end malaria?
Oh, we can. So, like I was saying, it's a matter of selling what we want to do to the extent that it gets into the blood vessels of everybody.
Right.
Because now, like in your initial statement, you mentioned that it's as if we've lived with malaria so long. It is preventable. It is curable, more or less. Yes, so people feel that because it's curable, well, some 3 days of taking my anti-malaria, I'm fine. Why should I bother so much? When people are littering, probably the last thing that comes into their minds is malaria. Maybe you're littering, then they're thinking of cholera or something.
We've got videos
But-
of people pouring refuse into
God.
drains
Yeah.
as soon as it starts or looks like it's going to rain, right?
Yes.
Charlie,
There's a lot of advocacy.
make
and
me assistant acting something deputy under mayor.
I'd rope you in
Right.
as one of my advocates in the metropolis.
No, advocacy. I've done that for two. I'm old now.
you,
I want action.
you want action, eh?
Do you see? When people put me on committees, there's trouble. You see? But seriously, right? You go out there. I did something. In fact, Joy FM did something with the sanitation team some time back. You saw them going to chop bars.
Yeah.
But okay, it's kind of phased out. But hey, the authorities, the agencies, let's get out there and decide that this must happen.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter whether it's Sukura or Roman Ridge,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Let's get in there and do the stuff, and then we can align with these things. There are creative ways of bringing in some of these things, right? But you do have a challenge, right? But the people seem to think that, hey, what's going on, right? We don't have bins. I was telling somebody something a few days ago that I don't understand. This country doesn't have payphones, public payphones. Everybody is on cellular. For what? In other countries, these things are maintained
Yeah.
and they serve a purpose. So if we want to have bins, we should have them. Okay?
We're actually working on that.
Yeah.
It's one of our biggest strategies for the next quarter, especially in Accra Metropolis, to make sure that we engage the schools, engage stakeholders, engage partners to start getting us bins and training our students to understand why they need to manage their waste in the first place, segregate the waste from the source, so that their plastic waste
I'm
can
going to
be
do
disposed.
3 weeks on this malaria thing.
Oh,
That would be great.
We'll be pleased to engage
Because
you.
now I'm on fire. Listen, there's a chap who does waste bins with the discarded PET bottles.
Yeah.
Yeah? The water bottle.
Okay.
Right? And he's done a couple of them. I've seen it somewhere. Right? I don't see why 2025. Right? You know, we can't get bins. Right? Churches, whatever. Right? Ziggy, we're going to do a bin campaign there. We're going to get bins. Right?
Yeah.
And then the agencies that are not working, we'll put them in the bin. Because, you see, the basic behavioral change you want for people putting their refuse in bins, right? Sometimes I've taken a drink, I find there's a lot of stuff in my car, even receipts, okay? But there are people who chuck them out the window,
Yeah.
right?
Surprises me. I see people do
Okay?
that. Yeah.
And it's because certain things are ingrained, right? Internalized,
Yeah.
okay? So we must hit this campaign and make sure that we partner you and we end malaria.
Yes.
You see, for families, next week I'll open the phone lines. If you've lost somebody to malaria, I remember there was a lady who set up a foundation. Oh, I can't remember the name. She lost her daughter painfully to malaria, right? But we must inform to transform. Yeah? We must. Yeah. Doc, you were going to add something.
You're taking the
The
case
previous
management.
question,
Case
yes,
management,
yes,
yeah.
yes. So, what I'll say is that the tests for malaria are very reliable.
Okay.
They are highly sensitive, and the results are highly reliable. But like any other test, they have their limitations as well. But the sensitivities are so high, and they are very reliable.
Whilst you're
But
chewing on that, somebody also, a friend of mine, sends me a message that why is it that sometimes in the hospital you test negative and they say they are treating anyway?
So it's one of the things that we are trying to change, even with the prescribers, the clinicians as well. It's something that everyone needs to change or move away from. As I said previously, we used to treat presumptively, and some people are still within that mindset.
Okay.
So we need to move away from that mindset.
Right.
Okay. And so the test results are reliable, as I said, but they have their limitations. What we always advise is that if you do one particular test and you still feel that the result did not come out as you expect, you can always do the other type. Like if you did RDT and you think you still suspect it's malaria, you can do microscopy or vice versa.
Right.
Or do in a different lab just to confirm, but never ever treat a negative test case with ACTs. No, it's not acceptable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shirley asked your question, but yes, I'm still serious on the Bukum place. I know Bukum is yours, but yeah, it's terrible. Any
Yeah.
event you have,
Yeah.
right? The chaos
Yeah.
there and the refuse, it's horrible.
Yeah.
Right. Hi, Nortey and the panelists. I really want to understand why some people never read positive on RDT of malaria unless microscopy. Personally, my RDTs are always negative, but when I do the microscopy, when it's done, the parasites are seen that moment. This is from Mike in Adenta. I think he also called.
Yeah, I think we have to really look into this because it's a case by case basis. It's not true that you always test negative for RDTs because we have to look at the test procedure, the storage of the RDTs, the type of RDT. So a lot of factors that go into place in terms of the results that you get. So we need to examine it into details.
But even with a random sample on my lines, it's difficult to get through, right? But people are getting through, and we're getting feedback. That there's some I don't know, concern when it comes to the tests
on the RDT.
Yeah, the RDTs, and then some are saying in hospital and so on and so forth. I have a caller on the line. Let me quickly. Hello. Hello.
Yeah, Mr. Nortey, I hope you're doing well.
Yes, Ajingo in Tema.
Yes, I will.
Yes, go ahead, shoot. Ajingo, there's a lot of noise in your background, eh?
Are you there?
I am there, but
sorry.
Go ahead.
I think you can take anti-malaria drugs to prevent malaria, right?
Go ahead, I'm listening. You're talking about
so after taking the medicine. There are some people, for me, no, but there are some people, they know they are getting the prevention, so they will do whatever they like. They leave themselves because they are being prevented. Do you take the medicine to prevent yourself from malaria and don't take care of yourself, don't take any precaution, and you think that's safe?
Okay, right. He's saying that's preventive, right? Use of the medications. And he seems to think that people do that and then they feel they can do anything because they have prevented it.
No, there's a place for prophylaxis.
Prophylaxis, that's right.
Like you take medications to prevent it. Usually, we don't. Apart from seasonal malaria chemoprophylaxis in Ghana, it's not a thing that we do routinely for people to take treatment medications for preventing malaria. As a matter of fact, we reserve that kind of prophylaxis for people who don't live in endemic areas like foreigners who are visiting Ghana, who don't have any form of protection whatsoever because they haven't been exposed to malaria parasites whatsoever. So we reserve that for them. And even that, the medications we give for prophylaxis for such people is not the same as the medication we give for treatment. So for somebody who takes malaria medications sold on the market for treatments as a way to prevent malaria, it's absolutely not right. And it may not be the reason why they don't come up with malaria. And of course, I don't know why I would rather want to be taking medications when we can, because every medicine has its side effects. So why would you want to put your body through taking a particular medication when there's no proper indication for it? Other than rather covering yourself, making sure you prevent mosquito bites, sleeping under the mosquito net, wear protective clothing when you're going out. I think it's safer for your body than to be popping medicine.
Just to also add to that, a quick one. That, there's a place for chemo prevention, use of medicines to prevent malaria. And very soon in the 21 districts in the Greater Accra region, where we hope to eliminate malaria, we would undertake what we call mass drug administration, where you are using anti-malaria, or they are given a number of times, the entire population, anyone eligible within the population will be given an anti-malaria a number of times in a year to prevent malaria. And it will clear any parasite reservoir within the population and help us achieve the zero malaria quickly in those. But the medicines that we use are not those that are used for treatment.
They're over-the-counter ones.
Yes. They are special. They are special ones reserved for prevention.
Great. Right. Let me see if I can quickly clear, because we've already hit 3 o'clock. Good afternoon, Nortey. I know that the mosquito that gives malaria breeds in clean water. How true is this? Secondly, I have results for HPV and PAP tests, and both are negative. This is to do with Queen. All right, thank you for the great work. Yeah. You went to do the test for the cervical. Right, great stuff, Queen. You see, that's why you are manye. All right, great. So she's sharing that. She's talking about the kind of water the mosquito breeds in. Let me just quickly read these ones. Good afternoon, please. How are you and your guests? They look okay. I'm fine. I'm off from their education for some time just because of funeral activities of my father from today. Oh, Hayford in Bato. My condolences, All right. It's always there. You can, get the I think the podcast for Ultimate Health, right? This one says, wow. Good afternoon, Nortey. Please, I'm not blocking anyone. Stop that. Please, I would like to contribute to your show. I'm a teacher in a basic school here in Accra. A few years ago, the students were introduced to the segregation program. That's waste segregation, right? But after some time, those personnel to come and collect the refuse stopped coming. And it became the responsibility of the heads of the school to take out the refuse or the rubbish. And it's very costly. That's why most of our schools have lost a lot of dustbins that are full. Mami in Wager. That's feedback for you. Just what I said. Okay. This one says, Nortey, the bins are expensive now. Where can we get affordable bins to buy? Na in Osu. We will buy the bins. You wait. You wait. I vex. Dede says what? It's not a lost cause with adults regarding education on littering the environment. After all, don't we have adult education for various disciplines? Even if the education starts with the kids, as they observe the adults, they'll pick up that bad habit at some point. Dede, you are on point. You are on point. Right. This is why somebody went and said he'll be caning people in Kumasi and trouble came. They say you can't cane people. Right. So we're out of time. What I'm going to do, because there's lots of stuff I haven't thrown at you, I'll be your most feared mosquito and I will bite. Right? But we had the malaria vaccine.
Yes.
We were part of developing it.
Yes.
And we have rolled it out.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
We have the long-acting insecticide-treated nets. I know about that.
Yes.
And then we have this gargantuan task of behavioral change. Right? And partnering you, the agencies. So definitely, next week we are here.
Great.
Sharp.
Great.
Because I want to get, when you say we'll talk to people to see if we can get bins, Charlie, when I was doing national service, was it sixth form or when? We had Health for All 2000. And I thought 2000 is so far away. Dr. Opoku Nimo, is he alive now? Something Nimo, right? He was then in charge of that. Health for All 2000. I thought 2000 is, come on. When I was a kid, there was a program a series called Space 1999. And it was like, that's science fiction. It's far. Okay. We've set a target for 2028. Yes. It's just down the road.
Yeah.
Okay. Some people have targeted 2028 because of elections. But this is a major thing we must crack.
Yes.
Congratulations on the numbers that have dropped.
Yes.
But there's definitely work to be done.
Yeah.
Thank you once again, Dr. Mate. And Dr. Paul Boateng, Louisa Mate and Paul Boateng. We're going to do a bit more on this. Drill down on the programs. I'm interested in areas where you say routine things are going on, right? Maybe we need to join you on some of these things.
That would be great.
And then see how, and then get news involved as well, right? Many thanks to you, my listeners, and my producer, Ziggy Badio. I've been calling him Beidou, but actually he's a very bad person, right? And so it is bad times 10, right? You see it as BADIO, but Ziggy, thank you so much for producing, and of course you, my discerning listeners. This is serious stuff, and we've got to get back to it next week and see if we can get some promises. Stick and stay on Joy 99.7 FM. Ziggy plays some Ziggy funky stuff after I'm out of here. Stick and stay. Don't go away. My name is Nortey. I'm out.
Can we dance? Can I show you a dance? Are you ready?
Joy 99.7 FM.
Let's go, everybody, to the Jesse. Give